Today I want to do some exploring with a way to kind of reset our design. So right now I've run this, and the only thing I've changed from last class to today is I've changed my repeat loop. Instead of using this repeat X number of times loop, so 10 times or 100 times, 1,000 times, whatever, I'm using a repeat while loop, which if you do a repeat while true, and this is true for lots of programming language, so you might use a while true do loop. That'll run forever because this is always going to be true, right? This is not a variable, so as soon as this loop starts, it's going to run forever unless it hits a break, and a break is in the loops, right? So unless I hit this break out of loop, or in EV3 programming, like a loop interrupt, this is going to run forever. So what I want to explore here is, if I run this, right now this is still drawing. This has been drawing for a while now, but the turtle has moved outside of the range that the screen can draw, right? We see this edge here, and so we have this sort of defined shape. Oh, it's up here. It's kind of on the edge here. It's kind of popping around the edge. And I want to explore, like, how do we, if the turtle goes outside of this, how do we get it to come back into the center to redraw? So I want to kind of limit where we are at the end of our shape. So now we're back in the main section. It's starting to fill up, right? And I want to try to make something that's going to fill up the space a little bit more quickly. So let's I'm going to save this one, and I'm going to start a new trinket, a new blocks. So the first thing I need to do is I want to figure out how big the perimeter of my window is. So I can just make a shape of a turtle, and I'm going to move forward by 10, and if I run it, it doesn't go very far. How about if I run by 100? Okay, so that runs far, but I can still see the turtle. What if I run by 500? And I hit run, and then my turtle disappears past the edge here. So what I need to do is start adding numbers until my turtle starts to disappear. And that should happen around 200. So my turtle disappears this way. And if I move backward by 200 and run that, my turtle half disappears this way. And if let me close this. Can I close this window? Alright. What if I turn first? If I turn right by 90 and move forward, that takes me to the bottom here. If I turn left by 90 and run. So we have a 400 by 400 path that my turtle can run in. And I want to know whether my turtle goes outside of the boundary of this. So if this is 0, 0 at the very middle where he starts, and this is 0, 200, I want to know if he's past, 200, 0. I want to know if he's past that. So one thing that we can do is we can start to look at our turtle's position. So if I leave this the way it is, I can use, on my text, I can use print. We've used the turtle write text before to write things on my screen, but text print will actually write things in my console window down here. So if I print my turtle's position, POS, here, and I run this, it's going to give me a number. 0, so this is the X, because it went straight up, so it's 0 in the X, and plus positive 200 in the Y. So we're going to, let me take out this left by 90 here, and run it again, and I should have 200, 0. So this is something that we can reference and kind of think about. But there's a problem with using this the way it is. So right now, I have two numbers, right? POS is going to give me an x value and a y value. So this is a variable that's storing two values. So in other variables that we've set up, sorry, I got rid of the stuff that was there because I want to build up to that, but they have one value, right? We've used in class things like speed or whatever, but they only have a single value, and that value is sometimes an integer, sometimes a decimal, sometimes a true or false value. But if I'm storing something in a variable, up until this point we've only used a single one, but we see this POS here, this position variable, has two values in it, and so that makes this a special kind of variable called an array or a list, and it's called a list in Python, and so this whole program kind of gets you ready for Python. So we're going to call it list, but this is going to create a list. So there's actually two values in this list. There's one that stores the x, one that stores the y. So this is cool, but it also runs into a few problems. So what if I put an if value here, and I say if logic, if something is equal to something, no, if something is greater than. So what if I say, let me duplicate my position here, if my position, I've moved 200, and if I say if my position is greater than, let's get a number, let's call this 150. The turtle should return to 0, 0 position, and then we'll print the position. So at the end of the program, if I run this, my assumption is that the turtle should move to 200. 200 is greater than 150, so it should return to position 0, 0, and then it should print 0, 0 down here in my console. And that's indeed what happens. So what if I, instead of moving forward, move backward? And this way it would be, what if my position is less than negative 150? Because remember, we're in a grid. If it's less than negative 150, then I also want to move back to 0, 0. So let's try that. So that fails, which is weird because our position is negative 200, which is indeed less than negative 150, but that fails. It gets confused with this. Well, what if I turn my turtle right by 90 degrees, right? And I'll move it forward again, and I'll see if it's greater than 200. Let's do it greater than 150. So I'm definitely past it. So this would be, that works. It's greater than 150, but is it greater than 150? It's at 0. So at what point, what are we comparing here, and how is that working? And again, if I go backwards here and run it, it goes back to 0, but up here we should be at negative 200, or I guess, let's see. Let's find this out. Let's run it. So that we're at positive 200 up here. If we went forward and we ran it, this is negative 200 is greater than 150. That doesn't make any sense at all, right? So we have this sort of issue where we're getting these weird things happening based on the numbers that we have. And it's at 0, and 0 is not greater than 150, and negative 200 is not greater than 150. So in this case, if I run this, I would expect this to do nothing at all. So we're running into a little bit of a problem with how the turtle is interpreting the double variable of position, and how can we compare two numbers to one number. It just doesn't work very well. So to do this, we need to use lists. So I'm gonna add some things here. This is gonna get a little bit complicated, but I'm gonna try to keep it as simple as I can. I'm gonna put the turtle up here. This stuff we can even get rid of this for now. Okay, so I'm going to print my position. This will move the turtle to the right because it's just moving forward by 200. But I want to actually break my position up. So I'll print my position, but then I'm going to do another print. I want to print something else. And I'm going to want to try to separate these values into two different things. So the first thing I want to do is I want to look at my options for lists. So I can create a list with different items or length of things, right? And a list is just exactly that, right? It's one thing, two things, three things, right? So I want to create a list with something, and what I want to create a list with is my position. And I want to store that list in a variable. So I'm going to create a variable, and I'll just call this position list. Okay? Position list, that works. Okay, so we have this position list, and I can set position list to something. So I could create a list with this, and then if I print position list, let's see where that puts us at. I'm also going to delete this stuff for now. Okay, so this created a list with actually 1, 2, 3, 4. This created some extra things. So what if we change this and run it now? Alright, so we have our position and we're printing position list, and that's giving us this two variables. So if we print position, it's two variables. If we print our position list, that also has two variables stored in it now. So what if we want to access just the X side of this, right? Let's do that. I'm going to move this down. So we want to access just the X part of our list. So we are going to use in this list get. So we're going to say we're going to print in this list, and the list that we want to print is position list, right? That's where we have our saved, our position. And I suppose we could maybe simplify this, but let's figure this out later. We'll try that in a minute. And we want to get the first value. So if I run this, it's going to give me the first value. So I've printed my position, which is 200, right? And then I'm looking at my list and I'm getting the first item. And just for fun, because I don't know how it will react, I'm going to get the position. This probably will also work. Let's run this and see. Yeah, that'll get the first thing. So I actually don't even need, I can skip some of this, right? But just so you know it works as variables, I can skip some of this. That's okay. What are we doing here? Okay. So I can get the first value and I can get the last value, right? And it gives that. So now, if let's delete this stuff. I only have a minute left in this video, so I'm going to pause it, I'm going to set it up, and then I'll walk you through it. Okay, so I've added this if statement. If the position, we want the first position, if the first position is greater than 150, ordinarily we want this greater than 200 if it goes past that, then I want this to go to position 00. This worked before, but what didn't work before is if it was less than negative 150. This is where it got confused. Instead of going forward, we went backward, right? So now it does work. It does say it's less than negative 150. So it's coming back forward. So this is the correct format to do this. I'm going to finish up this video right now and put your assignment in the next one.